In episode 4 of House of the Dragon, we got Viserys firing his father-in-law, Daemon and Rhaenyra up to no good, Sir Criston Cole breaking his oath as a Kingsguard, and Daemon getting banished yet again. But what does it all mean? This video will explain the episode and all of the Easter eggs I spotted. Spoiler warning if you have not yet seen the episode. The episode begins with Rhaenyra sent on a progress through Westeros to find a marriage match. But she is growing more and more frustrated with the potential suitors, particularly with the age of those presented to her. Rhaenyra hears potential suitors from Storm's End, the seat of House Baratheon. We can hear a storm raging outside. Rhaenyra listens to a marriage proposal from a member of House Dondarrion, a descendant of Beric Dondarrion, the guy with the flaming sword from the main series. We then see a proposal from a young Blackwood, who is continually heckled by a Bracken. When the Blackwood begins to leave, the Bracken names him a coward, and the pair fight a duel, resulting in the elder Bracken's death. This scene serves two purposes. First, to show the growing unrest in the kingdom. After decades of peace, everyone is ready for a fight to square old grievances with blood. And secondly, as a bit of world building. House Blackwood and House Bracken have been feuding for centuries and are ancient enemies. Every generation or so, a new grievance is committed by one side or the other, reigniting the feud. This duel in this location might also foreshadow a battle we will see later this season, so keep an eye out for that. Rhaenyra, fed up with her progress, returns to King's Landing early, a decision that her father will be upset by. In King's Landing, Daemon has returned as King of the Narrow Sea after defeating the Triarchy and the Crab Feeder. In the throne room, many nobles have gathered, expecting to see a confrontation with Daemon. Viserys assembles his Kingsguard and wields Blackfire, a show of force to deter Daemon should he start something. To everyone's surprise, Daemon offers his crown to Viserys and relinquishes his title as King of the Narrow Sea, offering the Crab Feeder's hammer to be added to the Iron Throne. This is in reference to Aegon the Conqueror, who forged the Iron Throne from the swords of his defeated enemies. It makes sense that over the centuries, the Targaryens would continue to add the weapons of their enemies to the throne to perpetuate it as a symbol of their continual dominance. These actions help to repair Daemon and Viserys' relationship, and Viserys embraces Daemon in a show of forgiveness. I love the genuine happiness that Viserys displays to have his brother back. At the end of the day, Viserys struggles with the harder duties of being king, so forgiveness comes easily to him. Daemon seems to have fooled everyone but Rhaenyra. Viserys and the realm believe that he has returned to patch things up with his brother. Though this is only partially the reason for his return, Rhaenyra correctly assesses that Daemon is back for another reason. Later in the episode, we find out that Daemon has returned to claim Rhaenyra's hand in marriage. Though he goes about it in a typical manipulative manner. He leaves Rhaenyra a map of a secret passageway out of the Red Keep, so the pair can enjoy the city not as Targaryens, but as two regular people. The Red Keep is actually littered with secret passageways, created by Maegor the Cruel, the second son of Aegon the Conqueror, in case he ever needed to escape the Red Keep. Maegor even went so far to kill all of the craftsmen responsible for constructing these passageways, so the secret was his and his alone. Throughout the series, Daemon has already been compared to Maegor the Cruel several times. Both are second sons who desire the Iron Throne, despite others being above them in the line of succession. And both have a cruel and chaotic personality, reveling in murder and mutilating people. Daemon having knowledge of Maegor's secret tunnels is a subtle way that the TV show uses to compare the two men yet again. Daemon's knowledge of these tunnels will also play a role in the story in later episodes and seasons. But all you need to take from this is that the Red Keep might not be as secure as first impressions would lead you to think, and spies can use these tunnels to gather information. Next up, Daemon and Rhaenyra watch a play, and Rhaenyra comes to the realization that the small folk feel the same as the High Lords of Westeros, perceiving her to be a poor choice as heir, and that her brother Aegon is the better option. Rhaenyra is understandably upset, but states the small folk hold no bearing on her rule. Daemon warns her wisely that the opinion of the small folk holds more importance than she might think. Like many things in this episode, this is another line setting up future events. The pair move to a pleasure house, and Daemon enacts his plan. He removes Rhaenyra's disguise so that she will be recognized, and seduces her in a public makeout session. Daemon does this for two reasons. partly to show Rhaenyra that she doesn't have to conform to the expectations of society. Marriage does not set a limit on her, and as a Targaryen, the rules do not apply. She should be able to take and do whatever she likes, just as Aegon did when he conquered the Seven Kingdoms. But mainly he does this to besmirch Rhaenyra's honor and the perception of her throughout the kingdom. What lord would want her after these rumors begin to swirl around the realm? Daemon does this in an attempt to force Viserys to allow him to marry her. But the plan backfires, and Viserys feels manipulated by Daemon and banishes him. Comment below where you think Daemon will end up next episode. In the past couple episodes, we have seen Viserys be indecisive, but in this episode, we see him take the hard actions to banish Daemon, select Rhaenyra's match, and rid himself of the manipulations of Otto. These scenes of Rhaenyra are juxtaposed by shots of Alicent back at the Red Keep. Where Rhaenyra is breaking from the gender roles and experiencing the world, Alicent has resigned to the expectations of a queen, acting dutifully to Viserys, doing as he wants, when he wants, as well as carrying out the will of her father. It is clear that Alicent is not happy with her situation, and earlier in the episode we get a sense that she feels like a prisoner, only there to produce more children and heirs for the king, especially males. Notice that her second child, Rhaenyra, was being looked after by Alicent herself. But when we saw Aegon in the previous episode, he was being doted upon by half a dozen people. This is all done to further visually represent that in this world, the worth of a female is not equal to that of a male. We also see that Alicent is preparing and drinking a tea that appears similar to the moon tea that Rhaenyra is given at the end of the episode to prevent unwanted pregnancy. The show seems to be setting up seeds that Alicent is not just a dutiful queen, but is also working to break free from gender roles, though in not the same manner that Rhaenyra does. Also, in the scenes with Alicent, we see that Viserys' rot is spreading. He is covered in scabs from the Iron Throne. The man is falling apart from the literal and metaphorical weight of ruling the kingdom. Despite his best efforts this episode to solve his problems in Daemon, Corlys, Rhaenyra, and Otto, the damages of these political wounds have left him and the realm irreparable and ready to fall apart. Back in the brothel, Daemon is unable to perform and abandons Rhaenyra. She returns to the Red Keep and seduces Criston Cole. This is a massive deal for Cole. Effectively, he is forsaking his Kingsguard vows and performing an act of treason by sleeping with the princess, which would be a death sentence in itself. We get a long shot as he places his white cloak down to emphasize the full weight of his decision to break his oath. The punishment for breaking the Kingsguard oath is also severe. Just a couple decades before the events of the show, another Kingsguard broke his oath by taking 3 women to wife. As punishment, he was gelded by his former Kingsguard brothers and sent to the wall. So you can imagine what is going through Cole's head as he made this decision. This scene also goes a long way to demonstrate how Rhaenyra's character has changed both for the good and bad. On one hand, she is being more assertive, but on the other, this act could be seen as an abuse of her power, and that she has not truly considered how her actions affect those around her, especially those below her station. This plays into her view of the small folk that we saw earlier in the episode, and that she cannot yet fully grasp the consequences of her actions. Next, we see a spy delivering news to Otto Hightower about Rhaenyra's activities in the pleasure house with Daemon. We learn later in the episode that the spy was working on behalf of Lady Mysaria. Mysaria appears to be amassing an amount of power within King's Landing, trading in secrets gained through a network of spies, just as Varys and Littlefinger did in the main series. Otto Hightower passes the information on to Viserys, both to damage Rhaenyra's reputation and to turn the king against Daemon. But like everyone else in this episode, Otto's plan backfires, and Viserys starts to see that Otto is abusing his position to push his own agenda, specifically to have Aegon, his grandson, named heir. This outrages Viserys and leads to Otto being fired as Hand of the King. Just as with Daemon, Viserys is taking action to solve difficult political problems by ridding himself of Otto and his manipulations. Alicent overhears this conversation and confronts Rhaenyra in the God's Wood. Just as it seems their relationship was on the mend, Rhaenyra lies to Alicent when confronted, which will surely come back to bite her later. This conversation also feeds into the idea that Alicent is jealous that Rhaenyra can do what she wants, but Alicent has to stick to her duties, laying yet another seed to the collapse of their relationship. Viserys solves a lot of his problems this episode. After chastising Rhaenyra, he commands her to marry Laenor Velaryon, Corlys' son. This solves 2 of his remaining problems, acting as a wise decision to mend the rift between the 2 branches of House Targaryen and ensures Rhaenyra is on track to have children and secure the line of succession. Finally, we see the cat's paw dagger and learn that it has high Valyrian etchings marked into it, recording Aegon's prophecy. Viserys uses this to reinforce to Rhaenyra that the duty of a king or queen goes beyond the needs and wants of the individual. We will see if Rhaenyra takes this lesson on board. But what did you guys think of the episode? Who will replace Otto as Hand of the King? And where will Daemon go now? Let me know below. Cheers.